Ready to go?
I know.
Perfect. Let's throw this in here. Welcome, parents. It's really good to see you guys. So as we've come back from the pandemic and how we did things virtually, we are continuing to try new things, and this is us again trying to offer an opportunity for you guys to be here in person, because I think we really like that, as well as record things, and hopefully this recording will be even better. We've enlisted our incredible team here at KIS to try to make us look professional up here, so hopefully that goes well. Bear with us, as this is the first time we've sat up here using these microphones, so we're going to try to get used to that as well. As we're going along, we do have a ton of information, and you can certainly just take it all in and listen, but we do have a unit in the back who has a microphone. If anybody has a question as we're going, you could wait till the end, but if there's something to talk about right then that you don't understand or want more clarification, please raise your hand and we'll try to get a microphone to you and we can talk about it then. So, without further ado, let's jump into course registration for your high school students.
Hello, everybody. In case you haven't had the opportunity to meet me yet, I'm Mr. Samuels.
I should have done an introduction, shouldn't I? Hey, I'm Ronnie Sherry.
I'm Mr. Samuels. I'm just going to talk a little bit about requirements, graduation requirements specifically at KIS. I'm sure many of you who have been a part of the KIS community know about this already, but I'm sure there are also some new parents here. So this is going to be a friendly reminder for those who already have heard this information, but also really good for new parents. So as you can see, that a graduation requirement for KIS is that students obtain at least 22 credits. And a credit is just 1 year of a course. And half a credit would be 1 semester. Some of our courses are single semester. Majority of our courses are full year, and that would be a full credit. And so over the course of their high school, students are required to get at least 22 of those credits. As you can see, students will take 4 years of English, grade 9, 10, 11, and 12, 4 years of math, which include geometry and algebra 2. 3 credits of social studies, which include East Asian studies, world history, and US history. If a student wasn't here during grade 9, then they don't need to have taken that East Asian studies. But if they were here in grade 9, they would have done that anyway. 3 credits of science, at least, which include biology and chemistry. And then there are also kind of recommended sciences. If a student is potentially planning on going to pursue perhaps an engineering major or something like that, then physics would also be a good science for them as well. But that would not be a KIS graduation requirement. 2 credits of PE. All grade 9s would have done that, and then other students will choose to do that at some point during the rest of their high school career. And at least 1 credit of art, which includes music, theater, more traditional art, like drawing and 3D art, computer graphics, or computer-aided design. And then to kind of round that up, they get 5 credits of electives, of courses they want to do. They can just choose whatever courses they want to do to fill up the rest of their credits. As you can see just at the bottom here, there is no world language requirement to graduate from KIS. But again, many universities do recommend or even require that students take a world language. And so that is just something to be aware of when you're thinking about what type of school your student or your child is hoping to go to in the future.
I think this is a good time just to remind for those parents who have moved here, whether it was this year or last year, one of the things that we talk to your students particularly about is when you first got here, when they first came in, we did the credit check. So a counselor would have talked to you and we would have gone through a plan of, okay, you took these classes. Because sometimes you're at a school and it doesn't look exactly like this, but there are other courses where, oh, we were able to give you the world history credit here, or oh, this will count for your art credit or PE credit, whatever that looks like. But we also know that there's a lot going on when you're moving for your kids, for you, and sometimes it's easy to forget that. And so this is a good time to have those kind of refresher conversations. And so please reach out to us, specifically your child's counselor, and we can have those kind of one-on-one conversations to remind you of what credits they did get, what credits they still need to get as you kind of plan their next couple of years towards graduation.
You can also see these requirements online on our course guide or catalog on the website in case you want to reference back to it at any point in time.
And so when we look at the KIS graduation requirements, you can really see that it almost falls in line with the selective private university requirements. 4 years of English, 4 years of English, and math and social sciences, all the way down. So being at KIS, and we've kind of built our requirements around kind of opening up as many doors as possible for your child when they finally do graduate and approach their applications to university. As you can see over here, as I've said before, the engineering major and highly selective universities, some of them do require that physics, even though it's not a KIS graduation requirement. But also, as I've said, just have a look if that's something that your child is interested in. Look at the universities that they are interested in, see what they recommend that your child takes going through their high school careers.
Can I add something?
Yes, please.
When we share this with students, I really make sure to clarify, we're not trying to advertise or encourage anyone to become an engineer. It is a fantastic career, but we're not trying to push anyone into that or saying like, hey, if you want to do this. The reason that we highlight it is because engineering at those really selective schools is one of the most particular majors in regards to what they're looking for from your students. So they are the ones who would specify that they would like physics on the transcript, and they also would like at least through pre-calculus on the transcript. And so we really want to make sure that the information gets out there so that if that is what your child is thinking, you can make some, or they can make some decisions to fall in line with that. But we're really not advertising for engineering.
And yeah, just that quick reminder about the world languages. Again, not a KIS requirement, but you can see that some selective schools do actually require 2 to 3 years or more. Going on to SATs, schools, as you know, through the COVID, and many schools went test optional. And so this is an additional requirement, and some schools require SATs and some schools do not, and this is becoming less and less a requirement, especially in US schools. But that is something that for you to consider and about and talk with your child. And TOEFL. I get a lot of students asking me, oh, Mr. Samuels, I'm a US citizen, or I've been at KIS for the last 8 years. Do I need to take the TOEFL? And the general answer is, it depends. Obviously, students have been here for a long time. Their English is fantastic, of course. But some universities will still require them to take the TOEFL. They will pass no problem, and they'll get the score that they need. But it's just dependent on the university and what they accept as showing English language proficiency.
I really do want to underline that test optional thing. And for those of you who have been here for a couple of years, I'm sure you've heard me talk about this a lot. Again, test taking as a skill has become less and less important in a college application in U.S. universities, right? In a lot of countries, but countries that look holistically, the ability to take a test is just not as valuable as it maybe once was. Certainly 5-10 years ago, as we kind of talk to college admissions reps and we look at the data, that was a higher indicator of success at university and success for their applications, but that has continued to go down. Certainly for some students it will make sense, and there are a very select few universities that will require a standardized test of some point. But again, really this conversation always comes back to what is the best use of your child's time, of which there really is a finite amount of, and trying to use that time to best prepare them for these kind of lofty goals and towards what their ultimate future will be. So again, I just want to continue to underline the SAT, the ACT is almost always test optional, and encouraging your students to spend the time where it's going to give them the most kind of for their results. I've got to say it every time it comes up.
Yeah, no, it's very good. So this is a nice kind of extract from Yale University. I'm just going to kind of read this out. The high school transcript is almost always the most important document in a student's application. This really goes on to Mr. Charia's point about being test optional. The schools really do value the transcript. What courses have the students taken, and how have they done in those courses throughout their time in high school? But it is hard to conceive of a situation in which the appearance or absence of any one particular class on a transcript would determine the applicant's outcome. And so from this, it's just because a student doesn't have X or Y or a particular thing, the application decision is not going to be based on that. They're going to look at the whole application and everything that they have to make that final decision. Is there anything you want to add?
Well, I just think in general, college applications can feel like this unknown quantity. And so we're always looking for kind of specific answers. And I think it's important to remember that universities, they're not trying to trick anybody. There's not a secret formula or something that they're not sharing. They're usually going to be very forthright with what they're looking for, the type of student, their expectations, because they're selfish and they want to make their own job easier. They're going to look at these applications, and so they don't want 50,000 people guessing at what they want. They're going to be very specific. Like, here's what we're looking for. Here's what we value at our university. And Columbia, and we're going to show you a couple of slides here, but I think it's important to remember, when in doubt, go directly to the source. If you're curious of what they are saying they want, they'll usually make it pretty clear. And if you're having trouble either understanding that or finding it, please reach out to us and we can try to help you too.
The admissions committee does not make its decisions based on a piecemeal review of the applicant's recommendations, test scores, activities, or individual elements of the high school transcript. It considers each application as a comprehensive picture of that student. So they're building a picture of a particular student based on everything that they get to see.
I think some of you who were able to make it when we had was that in November or December?
Mock admissions?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
For those of you who came to the mock admissions, and we will do it again in the spring, I think maybe you got to see a real life picture of what this holistic review looks like, in that you were able to look at the transcript and the letters of recommendation and the student's essay all together, and then try to decide if you at your pretend university would admit this student or not. So that's a really good example of that.
Yeah.
I do want to plug, while we're talking about it, the mock admissions. So hopefully some of you came when we ran that, and I think it was positive. I think we really enjoyed it. And so we are going to run another version of that with new applicants and a new fake university. So if you came before, please come to the next one, and if you didn't, you'll have an opportunity. Hopefully you guys all got the email with our schedule for this semester as we try to do more things in person and more opportunities for these discussions.
I really like this point that they've put here. When the admissions committee looks at your transcript, it will not focus on whether you have taken any specific course. It will be far more interested to see that you have challenged yourself with difficult coursework and have done well. So less about the individual courses, but more about how the student has challenged themselves and how well they have done in the courses that they have chosen to do. I won't go through all of these. I'm going to show a few of them, but I won't go through all of them in depth. But here you can see when students come to us and ask, or parents even ask, like, what does my child need for? As Mr. Charrier said, it's really good to go on the university website because they will explicitly tell you what they are looking for. So North Carolina, as you can see, it's 4 years of English, at least 4 units of preparatory maths, college prep maths. They want 2 units of a foreign language, 2 years of languages, 3 in science, and 2 units of social studies. Again, you can see how KIS has really prepared your children to meet these requirements. And this little excerpt at the bottom, admissions at Carolina is competitive. Successful applicants typically go far beyond this, but this is their minimum requirements for applicants. And then Columbia University is a little bit different. They're asking for 3 to 4 years of foreign languages and 3 to 4 years of lab science. One thing I do want to say is that some of the students who have got up to like Spanish 4 or AP Chinese, and they're saying, well, what do I do if I've only done 1 year of Chinese in high school, but I'm at the AP level? Do I need to do another language? And the universities know that to get there, you have to be proficient in that language and will accept that reaching that level, even if it's only 1 year in high school, is sufficient. And then the University of California, again, very similar to the requirements that I've been talking about, but they've added visual and performing arts. And again, we require at least 1 year of visual and performing arts. So as you can really see, your child coming to KIS and graduating from KIS is put in a really good position to apply to a wide variety of colleges.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Sana Mohammed. I will just introduce myself really quickly. I am new to KIS this year, but have worked as a counselor previously, so really excited. We're going to talk a little bit about AP courses. So a great place to start to find out more about AP courses if you're not too sure about them is the College Board website. You can find out more of explanation of the AP courses, what that might look like, but to know what specifically it looks like at KIS, it's really good to go to that course guide or the course catalog that I was mentioning earlier to get more specifics of what that looks like here at KIS and all the prerequisites and things like that that are required for the course. We've actually been having these AP share sessions this week, starting on Monday. And your students are also all informed about these through Schoology or through their emails. I know Ms. Keller's been sending them reminder emails every day as well this week. These are really great information sessions if your students planning to take these courses in the next year, or they're thinking about it, or they're not sure. The teachers are all going to be present talking about their course, giving them more details about it, and a good place for your students to go to ask any questions if they're not sure. And so we are definitely encouraging students to attend these as much as they can. Anything else to add?
If your student's even thinking about an
Yes.
AP course, just thinking about it, they should definitely be at the share session. It is, no one should take an AP course based solely on conversations with their friends. Again, just like we're asking you to go to the source for the university's requirements, we're asking your children to do the same thing for the courses that they're selecting next year. So we only have Thursday and Friday left, but please do ask your kids which share sessions they've been to, what they learned, and which ones they're going to go to on Thursday and Friday. Hopefully they've already got a plan, but if they don't have a plan, please ask them which ones are offered, have a look with them, maybe make some recommendations, and really encourage them to spend their advisory time that way.
There are some courses that are not present for these sessions, but they're going to be talking to students during the current course that they're in. So for example, AP Spanish or any of the AP language courses, if your students are already currently enrolled in those, the courses before them, level 1, level 2, level 3, well, I guess not level 1, but level 4, depending on the level, they'll be talking to them about it in their classes. Same for physics, Studio Art 2D, and then AP Studio Art 3D. In terms of AP courses or how many courses your students can take, it varies for each grade level. So you'll notice for 10th grade, the max amount, no matter what the unweighted GPA is only 1. For 11th grade, it's 2 if your student has a 2.75 at minimum, and then 3 if they have a 3.7 unweighted GPA. And then at senior year, it's 3 for 2.75 unweighted and 4 for 3.7 unweighted. There is an opportunity for your students to appeal for one additional AP course and only register. So we're telling students to only register for the number of AP classes that they're already approved for. So if they're a student in 11th grade and they have at least a 2.75, they should only be registering for those 2 AP courses. If they're planning to appeal, that's okay, but make sure that they're registering for the courses that they really need to have in their schedule and that they're most interested in. If the appeal is approved, then we'll go ahead and go back and adjust their schedule.
This is probably the time where we need to make sure that we talk about more isn't always better.
Yes.
Right? And when we were looking at like what the colleges were talking about on there, they talked about wanting to see students that are challenging themselves, but challenging themselves and being able to do well. And that looks different for every student. And what doing well looks like also varies from student to student. But they definitely want to see that they're doing well in class, but they also want to see that they're doing well outside of class as well. Right? Just taking more APs isn't going to necessarily lead to the most success, right? We want students who are taking APs because they're really interested in learning more about that subject, because they want to go to a deeper level than the non-AP version, because it's a topic they find interesting, because it's a potential career path, but also realizing that nobody's going to become a doctor or not a doctor because they took AP biology in 10th grade versus the student who took regular biology in 9th grade, right? That's not going to make the difference. What might make the difference, though, is the student who took the amount of AP classes and the rigorousness, that's probably not the right way to say that, you know what I'm saying, that allowed them to enjoy their classes, right? To not be stressed and not have to be up till 3 in the morning and not have to miss out on hanging out with friends on the weekend or that extracurricular or developing deeper friendships, right? Because the students who are feeling successful, who are feeling like they're the best version of themselves, will ultimately continue to be successful year in and year after. And so again, I know it's really hard. You know, as parents, you want the best for your students, and the more APs that they're doing can seem like, oh, they're really preparing themselves. But not if it's at the cost of all these other things that are really important to how they develop. And so again, we say it all the time, just more is not always better, but what is the best course load for them? Where can they still be successful outside of the classroom as well?
That also is the idea behind these limits that KIS has. Our idea or our goal in having the limits is to help support your children in finding that balance for themselves. And I think also sometimes the number of AP classes your children take is not a measure of how many they could take or where they could be successful. It is where they would be most successful in those courses while still doing the other things that they want to do. All of your children do a lot of things after school that are important, that should take priority. Not always take priority, sorry. They are important to their selves and their development. And taking another AP course at the risk of stopping those fun activities or those enriching activities, that isn't necessarily a choice that we would recommend or suggest that you have your child make. All of those things like sports and theater and arts and fun and hanging out with your friends, those are really important in their development and in their relationship skill building and in their happiness. And children who are able to maintain that really good balance between the challenge of courses and the extracurricular things that really satisfy their soul and their hearts, those children tend to be the most successful. And I mean the most successful in their courses, but I also mean the most successful in their happiness, in their relationships, and their friendships. Working at KIS, kids who take more than they should and they find themselves unbalanced, where the challenges are really outweighing the fun things, that is sometimes where we find children struggling in their classes, struggling to stay awake in classes, struggling with their friendships or maybe even their relationships with you, and struggling with their grades. That often is because of that imbalance that's somehow created. So these limits really are meant to help support your child in finding that balance, and really ultimately that balance would help to lead to their success.
Yeah, this, what you were saying, Jennifer, is reminding me of a conversation I had with a student today. And it was almost like he had his own revelation where it's like, I do really well in the subjects I enjoy, and I enjoy the subjects I do really well in. And it was kind of a massive correlation between success and doing the things you enjoy. And when those two things come together, it's beautiful, and there is success. So just my encouragement is to really explore with your child when they are exploring which APs they want to do or the courses they're going to do, to really talk to them about what it is they are enjoying in school now and where they're finding that success, and letting that guide them to what they're going to do in the next year or 2 years.
That enjoyment does come out in their applications. Like we talk to, I mean, both like when we look at their applications and their essays, but also when we talk to admissions reps, like they are trying to do this impossible thing of predicting how a 17, 18-year-old is going to be once they go from this very confined environment where they've got parents and teachers and administrators and everybody around them kind of telling them where to go at every hour of the day. And then they go off to college and they get to make all of their own decisions. And universities are looking for those who are intrinsically motivated, who have found things that they're passionate about, who they know that because they have these areas that they've already kind of found a kind of deep passion for and meaning, that once they get to university, it's probably likely they're going to continue to do those things. And if the students don't kind of have that revelation that Dale's talking about, where they're like, oh, I really like this class and I really do well in it. I should spend more time doing things like that. If they don't have that opportunity, then I don't think that it necessarily comes out in their application, even if they have a transcript that's got lots of, really, really hard classes. And that's really what this kind of comes back to, is, again, trying to build those skills that will ultimately help them with their goals, and which I think a lot of you, what your goals for them are.
I also do want to point out the numbers on this chart are the maximum. Students will, for example, if you're in 12th grade, your maximum in that most right-hand column is a 4. We do have students who take fewer than that, and that's okay too. I feel like we're just highlighting this maximum, and that does not mean your child has to take 4. If that's their number, that's the most that they could take. But again, some really good conversations about balance and interest and time are really important right now. I do also want to point out, for those of you who have been here a few years, this chart does say unweighted GPA. In the past, we had used weighted, but are finding that it is more relevant and helpful to us in talking about unweighted GPAs.
Oh, that was good timing.
Oh,
I forgot
like
that
we
that
already
was going to be the
talked
very
about
next one.
I think that's
Perfect.
the next slide, but that's okay.
yeah.
So yeah, that's the conversation that we were just kind of having. It is a conversation we have with the students a lot as well. And I think what I say to the students when we do talk about balance isn't, oh, you need to spend the same amount of time on all these different pieces in your life. Balance is understanding yourself better, right? Because there are lots of things that we all spend time on that also energize us and also give us things back, right? Time isn't that, oh, I spent an hour here and an hour here, and those hours are the exact same, right? Some of those hours feel very long. And for any of us who have can remember back to taking classes that we hated, that hour is a long hour, right? But there are lots of things that we do in our life where the time flies by. And the balance aspect is just, what is the right combination of things, right? Where are you putting your energy where you can be successful in the things that are important to you and to your family? And that is not going to look like your best friend's timeline, and that's not going to look like your brother and sister's schedule all the time, because we are all different. We all have different energy levels and things that interest us and that we do find meaning. And that's really this whole conversation and this process is helping the students to go from when they show up in ninth grade and all kind of given this exact same schedule of you guys all take mostly the same classes, to them getting to junior and senior year where they have a lot more flexibility, and on to university where they have those skills and they have that confidence to say, oh, this is where I'm the best version of myself.
The balance also really helps with sustainability, and I think that that's really important. When we talk about high school, we're talking about 4 long years for your children. And while all of us could run really fast for a little while, or, study for 5 hours on one night about biology, that's not actually something that we can or should try to sustain over a long period of time.
I bet a lot of you notice the difference in your children come mid to late November from the beginning of the year. We have a bunch of little breaks. It won't be all of you, but I bet some of you notice that little more tired, a little more cranky, little shorter when you ask how their day was. It's fine. That time of the semester, we just always know, because you come back from summer hopefully feeling good, and then we had a number of breaks and long weekends, and it seemed like every week was only 3 or 4 days, and then you kind of get to that end of October, into November, into December. It gets colder, and it's just 5 days, 5 days, 5 days. And that's the piece where things, if they've built a good schedule and they have good balance, they usually do pretty well during those times. But for those who have been kind of like always having to catch up because, oh, well, I've got a 4-day weekend coming up, so I'll catch up on my sleep then. That really catches up when they don't have those breaks anymore. And I think as we think about this semester, I would anticipate that, between now and spring break, again, lots of breaks. We've got lunar, there's another day off. Spring break comes pretty early this year. We get into April and May, those start to get pretty long, and there's going to be AP exams and maybe SATs. And again, so just thinking about building those habits right now. I know we're all talking to the students about that, but also you thinking about your children in that context as well can be really helpful. So this is really a summing up a lot of the things that we've been talking about. So when they're selecting their courses, this is kind of a general guide of how they are thinking about why are they choosing one class over the other, right? And this looks different for each grade level and each student, right? Graduation requirements is going to be the same for everybody. We've got to make sure we're meeting graduation requirements. For the students who have been here since ninth grade, they really don't have much of a chance to deviate too much. Those kind of happen automatically, and if they don't, we're kind of on top of them. But for those who have kind of transferred in, or for the students who maybe haven't taken an art class by the time they get to senior year, worth having those conversations, looking at their 4-year plan with them to make sure that they know, you know, when they're going to be meeting those graduation requirements. College admissions requirements, that becomes more important the older your child is, right? If your student is a junior going into senior year, right, really starting to look at what those college requirements or recommendations look like and using that as much more of a guide than if your student's in 9th grade going into 10th grade, right? And so again, that'll look a little bit different. Career interests, academic fit, time commitments, that's all part of the equation, right? There's never one way to go about things. Each student's going to be different, and I think as we get down to the bottom one, which is the last one, but that's really the most important. It's what's best for them, right? Taking in all of these pieces of information, using you as, you know, people to kind of help guide them, taking in information from their friends or older siblings who have taken classes before, talking to their teachers, talking to their counselor, right? All of those are good sources of information, but them remembering and them learning how to be the driver of this whole process, right? Keeping them at the forefront. You know, I always tell students, I'm not going to tell them what they should take. I'm going to have the conversation and usually ask them a lot of questions, but I'm never going to say, hey, you should take this and not this, right? I want to help empower them to make those decisions and feel good about them.
I tell students this last one is really the most important part, because they are going to be the ones that come to school every day and are expected to do well in the courses that they're in. So it's really important for them to take ownership of that. But also it's a good reminder for you parents over the next few weeks, a lot of people are going to be telling your child what to do. Their current teachers are going to be recommending and saying, oh, you should take this class, like, for example, Spanish 4. They're going to be saying, oh, you should take AP Spanish next year. You should do that. Their friends are going to be telling them what to do, or maybe upperclassmen, because they had a good experience in the class, and so, oh, you should definitely take AP Physics, whatever it is. And for some families, their families are going to be telling them what to do. If they've had siblings graduate from high school, and some parents take a very active role in this, I would really ask or encourage you as parents to take a step back and ask your children what kinds of things that they've heard and what kinds of things they're interested in doing, and help them make that decision. But don't make that decision for them, because they are going to be the ones here. And it's really difficult to support your child in a class if you yourself have selected it, if that makes sense. I know that we all come to parenting with our own excitement and our own experiences with education and what we really loved to take in high school and in college. But as I told your children, this is their time. This is their time to figure out what they would like to do with all of the information that they've gathered. So please do sit down with your kids and ask them and help them make that decision.
One of the things that reminded me of when Jennifer was talking about students who graduated before, one red flag that I hear from a lot of students is they hear that, oh, Johnny got into Yale and he took multivariable calculus, so I need to take that. I can promise you it wasn't because Johnny took multivariable that he got into Yale or whatever college, right? It was because of who that person was and the entirety of their academic experience, as well as all the things that they did outside. And so again, using that as a determining factor, well, this person did it and it worked for them, is sometimes a recipe for disaster, because again, that's going away from, or could be going away from, what your child's strengths and interests are.
This is something we'd like you to know, but it's really more for you to redirect your children back to these sources. There's a lot of information, really factual information out there for your kids in helping them to make the decision. So if you could help point them back to that. We have on the website the description guide, the advanced course guide, of course the AP Share sessions, talking with their current teachers. There's going to be an electives fair next week. And then at the end of it all, meeting with their counselor if they'd like some help sorting all that information out in order to make that decision. I think kids really do themselves a disservice by saying, oh, Johnny got into Yale, I'm going to take that class. And that is the only factor they consider when they're actually putting the course into PowerSchool. That's really making a bad decision. Decisions should always be really well-informed choices. And so these resources are great places to direct your child so that they can get the information they need to make a good choice for themselves. We're going to send this out as well, and these are links that you can use to look at yourselves and also to have some conversations with your kids and look at them with them. This is a calendar, a visual of what this time looks like for your children. We met with them last week, Thursday and Friday, to have this same lesson. It's actually the same conversation we're having with you. So everybody's heard it. We, this week, are offering the share sessions with all of the teachers. They're also conferencing in their individual classes about what the teacher recommends for next year. Next week, we have the electives fair, and then the last few days in February, PowerSchool will be open, where they'll be making their course selections. There are a couple of new exciting things on the horizon. If your child is going to be 11th or 12th grade, there's an AP Art History class that's going to be offered for the first time at KIS, which is really exciting. I don't know when the share session for that was, but they should go to that.
It was today.
It was today. So ask your kids if they went. Or have them talk to the 2D art teacher who will be teaching it next year. AP Music Theory is not a new class to KIS, but we do run it every other year. So it is available for children who will be entering 11th or 12th grade next year. And these are not new, but they are changes in the D&I department. CAD, CGA, and physical computing used to be semester-long courses, and now they're moving to a full year.
Just to add on, so AP Music Theory will be offered next year, and AP Comparative Government was offered this year, and so historically those two have gone every other year. So if your student is very interested in the humanities, very interested in AP Comp Gov, that would be the year after next, would be for when they would plan on taking that.
If your children are really interested in courses from the Design and Innovation department, we do offer a Pathways program, which is a way for them to specialize in one of 4 areas. And your children don't have to sign up for it, and there isn't, they don't have to decide right away. But for children who are interested in learning more, there are usually offered a few information sessions that they're welcome to go to. They'll also want to connect with their teacher or with their counselor just to make sure if they are on that pathway that they're continuing to take the courses they need in order to earn this designation on their diploma. We gave you, this is where we have the kids bring up their 4-year plans, but when you came in, you took a 4-year plan, I hope. You can see this is the front side of the 4-year plan. All of the classes that are those graduation requirements are listed there for you along the left-hand side of the form. Your child in those empty squares will be filling in those blanks for themselves. On the back side of the form are all of the courses or the elective courses that are available to your child, and they're divided by grade level. So if your child is going into 10th grade, if you look at that column on the back, those are the elective courses that are available to them in 10th grade. You can see that there are more electives offered in 11th and 12th grade, and that's something really exciting that they can look forward to. When your kids are picking or choosing their courses in PowerSchool, this is really for them, not for you, I don't know. Maybe you guys are going to do this together, I don't really know. Your kids are only going to be selecting the courses that they're eligible to take, like keeping in mind the AP limits or auditions that might happen in the spring. Your kids will actually register for the courses that they're eligible to take. If something changes, like if the AP appeal is approved or if they pass the audition for a music class, we'll go ahead and make those changes. That's not a problem at all. So they do have between the 1st and the 3rd of February to enter their courses in, so please do be checking on them. Maybe you could write yourself a little phone alert. Ask them on the 1st, have you done your PowerSchool? Ask them on the 2nd, have you done your PowerSchool? Students who don't put their courses into PowerSchool, it becomes much more complicated for them to take courses. They will also, in Power School, put their alternate choices. They do have to choose some alternates, just in case their first choices aren't available. Most students do get their first choices, but sometimes we do have to look at the alternates. So they will make those choices as well. And I do also want to say February 3rd is really the last day to make your course selections. At KIS, we don't do very many course changes or allow time for kids to change their major, change their minds. February 3rd is really your best bet in getting the course that you want to take. So they should do all that research before the 3rd. Having said that, there is a period in April where your kids will get an email, and it will have a Google form in case they have changed their mind. But this is really the only time. And by this point, the schedule has already been made, like the high school master schedule has already been made. There are only going to be, for example, 2 sections of AP Art History. Only 2, because that's how many signed up by February 3rd. And there may not be any more space if you register as a course change request. So when kids put in their request in April here, we make the change if it works within the schedule. But again, your kids already have a schedule by this point, and the master schedule is already created, so it does become more complicated to change their request. So if your kids really know they want something, they should be doing that by the 3rd. And then past April 28th, there is absolutely not an exception for changing courses or changing your minds.
Yes.
Yes? Okay.
Agreed.